We call the meeting to order, please. The Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We could have a moment of silence, please. Okay, we'll go ahead and get the meeting started. Next on the time is roll call. Commissioner Cos?
Here.
Coverson?
Here.
Smith is here.
Commissioner Doug Smith is here.
Mr. Mike Stevens? Here. All right. This is for public comment. I don't know if we have anything. Was there any public comment whatsoever?
Oh, Becky said no.
Beck? I think there was. I'm aware of it. It was 5 minutes ago, wasn't it, Jim?
Becky didn't have any public comment. Nope.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to administrative business. That we've got letter of support for the Little Stranger Church grant application.
I can kind of speak to that. I've received an email from the Little Stranger Church for a letter of support for the grant application, and so I asked our counselor and Mark Lothry to kind of assist me with putting together a letter to be signed in a letter of support. I think that it's a gem in our community, and anything that we can do to assist them. This is to start doing some of the interior type work within the structure, and I think it's a grand idea. So I would ask that we sign a letter of support.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, they have held a lot of fundraisers to help to raise money for this building. The county has also gave them some grant money for this, and they've been good stewards of the money. They've got the roof and the siding, got it where now they can work on it inside, and of course the pandemic has caused their fundraising to go downhill because they always had dinners and things and pie, social stuff like that. So they're really doing a great job with that building out
Yes,
there.
they are.
And they've also got a cemetery attached to the.
Well, I'm familiar with it.
Okay.
I totally agree.
Okay.
No, I just would ask that rather than, that she asked me if I would send a letter of support, and I'm like, no, yes, but I would prefer to bring it to the Board of County Commissioners and have it done as the board.
Yep.
The support of the
Do we
board.
motion on that, or just?
I'll make a motion. I'll move, Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we sign a letter of support for the Little Stranger Church grant application.
Second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion on that? Commissioner Mike?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Cos? Aye. Passes. Right, number 2 is building codes.
Commissioners, this is Mark Lothry. You have a letter or a board order formalizing the action that was discussed last week, and I'll let the county councilor cover any questions.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good morning. David Van Paris. The proposed board order, in essence, creates a board of appeals in the event that an individual would come in to apply for a building permit, and their interpretation and application of the building codes would be different from staff. In the event that individual would wish to appeal the staff interpretation, they would be able to do so to a board of not less than 5, not more than 7 individuals with background in the building trades industry or fire protection. The idea would be to have that board convene quickly and render its decision quickly so that the building process would not be unduly delayed. As far as the time frames for the handling of the appeals, I've put a very, very short period in there. It could certainly be lengthened at your discretion, For example, I think the time for them to render a decision could be not more than 5 business days, and perhaps the appeal could be heard within not more than 5 business days. At the end of those 5 business days, if no action has been taken to hear the appeal or to give a decision in the appeal, the applicant's interpretation would be deemed to have been accepted. In other words, the idea is to keep the building permit process from being held up over a question of the interpretation of the building codes. If the Board of Appeals finds that the staff interpretation is correct, they proceed on that basis. If the Board of Appeals agrees with the applicant on the disagreement between the two, then they proceed on that basis. I have it structured so it would not come to you. The decision of the Board of Zoning Appeals, Building Codes Appeals, would be final. If a person wished to appeal that decision, they could appeal through KSA 19223 and take a matter to district court.
And did we have that board order? You gave it to me yesterday, but did we have it in our packet?
Commissioners, if you...
I don't have it in front of me, and maybe Becky could get us.
Well, we circulated a draft yesterday afternoon, so I don't think he had time to get that.
I think we should see it before we...
Well, certainly, and I could have that to you in a matter of moments.
Okay.
So if you could just move on to your next item of business.
Okay.
Well, the next item is any more of the administrative business right there.
Just the
Any comments?
consent agenda?
Well,
I didn't know if anybody had anything.
I do. I just got a couple of
Okay.
things that I can say. First of all, I know you're probably familiar if you're not. There's been some concern about the rezoning of Christian Hospital with the city of Leavenworth. First of all, my hat's off to Commissioner causing that building coming this way. I just think that's a jewel. But I was wondering if we shouldn't have the staff look that up, that rezoning issue that's come up, and just report back to us so we can talk about it. What's the feeling of the governing body?
I think that's being taken care of. I think that's in the process.
Okay.
There's been communication. Ms. Lothry, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, this is Mark Lothry. The city manager for Leavenworth had sent me an email a couple of weeks ago about this. The county councilor and I have been in discussion. There is a 2-year window that we have that before it diverts back, but we will be working on moving forward with getting it zoned appropriately, just so that going forward there are no items of concern or no issue. But we'll have it reused within that 2-year time frame. So I'm not overly concerned with that.
Okay, great. Y'all ahead of me already. I just want to make sure that we address that. I think the better communication we have with everybody and working these things out ahead of time before they come to a head is just the best way to go. So, Commissioner Ross, thank you for stepping in on that. The other thing is just my opinion. I'll throw it out there. It's coming up at budget time, and it's just my thoughts on this. You know, I'm a firm believer in Port Authority. I do believe they do good things. I also think that when you have industrial parks, stuff like that, that's just one piece of the pie. I think we're missing part of the big picture on retail and commercial. And I know in the past the county commissioners have talked about it, for any of y'all were here, about having somebody on board that assists with economic development. I think we've got leakage going on in the county right now. What I mean by that is people that live here are spending their hard-earned money outside the area. Now, this is just brainstorming, just throwing it out there. I don't have the job description or anything, or if y'all want to do it or not. But I just think there's a way we can work with the cities and the county folks to keep the businesses in place, but also work together to bring them in. Tax dollars is tax dollars, folks. And I know y'all did an excellent job of lowering the mill levy last time. I watched that, and I felt very proud to see we were able to do it. So budget time's coming up. Don't know what y'all's feeling is about it, but I definitely wanted to just throw that out there just for some thought.
I think we should definitely have a work session again on economic development and what our priorities are and what direction we want to take.
Okay.
I
agree.
I'm good with the work session.
Good. Okay. All righty then. Well, I know Mark heard that.
So do we want to schedule a work session for that, a certain time?
Mark, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. We have numerous work session topics. We haven't had work sessions the last couple of weeks. One, because of the signed die, we try to keep that one light. And two, because I'm not there and it's a little harder on the work sessions for the call-in. But we do have numerous topics. That will be one of them. And we'll start scheduling those as early as next week for some of these different topics that have come up over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Appreciate that. I just think it's a good conversation to have with everybody. So thank
Absolutely.
you for that. That's all I have on that. Is there, before we move on?
The other one would be when Mr. Knoll comes up.
Okay. When do we do that? Is that going to be later on?
He's under Public Works.
Okay. Then we got the consent agenda.
Does anything need to be removed from the consent agenda? I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Motion and second. Any more discussion on that? All right. Commissioner Cos?
Aye.
Mr. Culberson?
Aye.
Commissioner Elmsmith? Aye. Commissioner Doug Smith?
Aye.
And Mr. Mike Stevens?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. So formal board action.
I think.
I'm sorry.
I think he's ready to circle back to the building codes now that we have the.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm new. Give me time. Go right ahead.
Commissioners, if it's convenient to at this time, and I didn't mean to interrupt your building or your business, I've circulated a draft of a board order. I would like to give you the time to look at that rather than just cursory inspection this morning. My suggestion would be we revisit the matter on your agenda next week, but that in the interim that you consider putting an abeyance or a moratorium, if you wish to call it that, with respect to the actual enforcement of the building codes as building permits come in. And I know that delays the implementation, but at the same time, this order would create a mechanism to resolve disputes. At the present time, there would be no resolution mechanism, and I think it could lead to undue delay in the building permit process. If I could suggest that this matter be placed on your agenda for next Wednesday for your consideration, and that you also give time to actually form the appeals board. You need to find the people to serve on it, get them appointed, bring them up to speed, and then the process could be put into place. And I would suggest that you might want to consider a moratorium on the enforcement of the building code until the end of February.
I just have one comment. I had a call from a developer in southern Leavenworth County. He had 17 plats he brought in, and I don't know if he presented them all at the same
Plats or
time.
building permits?
Well, requests for building permits.
Oh, I was going to say 17 plats.
So he now under the codes is required to get an engineered stamp of approval, and he was telling me that tends to take, with the way things are going right now in the construction process, it can take up to 6 weeks to get in to have that done. He is not opposed to that on new construction, and he in fact he told me he's very supportive of the building codes because he doesn't like the idea of fly-by-night people coming into our county and it not being up to a certain standard. But his suggestion was that we phase this in, and being that there's a building season coming, maybe April 1st would be when the hard deadline would be for the getting the stamps, because then you could, in all the future deals, he can negotiate that into the deal and also have time to get it into the engineer. Just allow him to build the time in, and I think we don't want to delay it unnecessarily. So that's one thing I think we should talk about next week. And the second thing I think we should talk about is the square footage on event centers and sprinklers, whether that square footage should be increased so that we, I think an event center certainly is different than a place where there's people living or that kind of thing, at least to talk about it. And the third thing I think we should discuss is whether the entire county should be included in the building codes. And I don't know if that should be a work session or we should just do it in an open session, or I don't know how you want to handle it.
Mr. Chairman, if I could offer this, Commissioner Stevens' points are very valid for consideration and perhaps best brought up next Wednesday when you bring this matter back on your agenda, and you could at that time have some time to consider the scheduling of a work session if needed. But in the interim, the problem we might run into between now and even next Wednesday is persons coming into planning and zoning to apply for a building permit. Planning and zoning detects a deviation from your building codes, rejects the permit, and this person is in somewhat, for want of a better phrase, in limbo. So if you could grant the moratorium to the end of February, place the proposed board order on your agenda for next Wednesday, I think you could proceed to a resolution of it.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, you ready for a motion? I move that we delay the implementation of building codes until March 1st, 2021.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Commissioner Stevens?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Coblson?
Abstain.
And Commissioner Scott?
Aye.
Make that easy for you until next week, right?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, you too.
Public Works time? Bill, I got you on the calendar for next week after the meeting so I can just get updated.
All right, sounds good.
Appreciate you going to take the time with me.
Try to get you up to speed.
Consider a motion to approve the extension of the Trans-System contract for the Eastern Gateway Bridge concept study.
So today for your consideration, we do have this additional services. It is a Phase 2 implementation of the original Eastern Gateway study. The original RFP that was proposed as part of the Eastern Gateway study in 2019, or at the end of 2019, was included a secondary phase that was not really described. Through the evaluation of ARP, who we have the feasibility study being completed by, they have made a request for a substantial list of information, both being provided from the Mid-America Regional Council traffic model and from Trans-Systems. The most substantial part of this, well, there's a couple parts. One, the Eastern Gateway concept study did not consider that roadway a toll road, and so there would be some reduction in traffic if that roadway were to be tolled. And so Trans-Systems had previously completed KDOT studies for the Centennial Bridge regarding a tolling aspect of that way in that location, and so therefore they do have a lot of that information from that previous study that they can utilize. The solution that was proposed was a two-lane structure. The amount of traffic that was projected at a 30-year projection without substantial growth on either side of the river was just a two-lane structure, and it was at the maximum capacity for a two-lane structure. And so what ARP would like to have determined is if they built the substructure of the bridge and the roadway for a four-lane structure, so it could be expanded in the future, what the additional costs of that would be. And I think most importantly, they're wanting to project traffic forecasts over a 50-year period instead of a 30-year period, and they're wanting to determine that by projected vehicle types, which is a much higher level study than was previously completed. Previously, it was over a 30-year period without substantial growth, and this was over a 50-year period. To me, that indicates they're looking at a longer-term investment. As a feasibility study, I would say that they aren't concerned with projections outside of what their investment window would be. And so this, to me, indicates that they are looking at a longer-term investment in the project than we had previously discussed as part of the feasibility study. And so, therefore, the traffic counts, if they were not at a number that would really fund the entire project or a substantial part of it, The longer that investment period is allowed to be extended across, maybe the more money that would be available from the private sector. The cost of this, and we can highlight any additional aspect of it that you want to discuss, but the cost of this additional study is $61,000, specifically $61,540. I think that it's important to remember if we move forward with this additional study, phase 2 of the Eastern Gateway study, then there will be some extension. It takes a substantial amount of time to do that much work. And so the feasibility study was originally an 8-week study. And so as this information is developed, they will be providing it to Arab. But that Arab study, we will not have those numbers back in an 8-week time frame. We started this the week before Christmas, and we were hopeful to have it completed by March 1st. But that's not going to happen. If now they've requested this additional information that has to be produced, Trans Systems has stated that it would probably take them 2 months to get this work completed, as long as the Mid-America Regional Council provided them the traffic information and modeling that they needed in order to complete their additional studying. So I would feel comfortable to state that this is going to take 2 to 3 months and be going in conjunction with some of the phases of the feasibility study. With that, I'll ask for any questions or further discussion that you might want me to clarify.
I guess I have a question. How, and maybe Jeff can address this, and I'd like to know if your drone deal took place, but how is the cooperation between other local government entities and like in Missouri and locally, how is that progressing, and what do we need to do to enhance that?
The two biggest partners we need is Lansing City and Platte County. So when we started this project, we started with Platte County, met with their commissioners, county and city, and got their feelings on it because this came up about 20 or 30 years ago, and the Platte County Commission was the first ones to shoot it down. Their positions completely changed over the years. They're going into a more residential-friendly county, like they're putting in county sewer systems. So their idea has completely changed on this. They're on board with it. The other important partner is Lansing City, because all the land that we're talking about lies within either Lansing City limits or Leavenworth County. So those are the two main partners on this side of the river. We did a drone video, flew last week. Once we get that completed and the video finished up, we're going to do a presentation to Lansing City Commissioners to talk to them some more about it. We're also meeting with Wyandotte County Commission because they're interested in the southern connections for the dog legs that come off of this, because it points right at the area that they had earmarked for industrial too. So,
and what about the city of Leavenworth?
We talked to them about it. They're more focused on Centennial Bridge, so.
Yeah, I think we need to have them as a partner is what I think to move,
Well, I think we can definitely make the offer out there, and Mr. Copeland is right. 30 years ago, we did entertain that, and Missouri wanted nothing to do at that time. Funding and a lot of other things like that. And the location has changed over the years. The city of Lansing has been very interested in this project, and be looking forward to scheduling a meeting to hear more about it. I know that, and I'll attend that with Commissioner.
I think the end of February is when we're going to do that.
And because it's so early. What's the tool? What's the cost? And everything that's involved. But to have another opening, besides having to go to Atchison or go down south, is a thing. And, I've always said this, even when I was the mayor in Lansing. Anything that's good for Leavenworth County, it's good for Leavenworth City, it's good for Lansing City. So I'm really a proponent of looking at this. Now, where this is going to lead, I don't know. But I think we're at least digging up the information, thank you, Bill, and going in the right direction, at least talk about it. But from Lansing's point of view, they are definitely, unless they changed in the last 2 weeks since they kicked me out, they are definitely want to hear some more about it and they're interested in it.
And I forgot to mention on the Missouri side, we talked to the city of Parkville officials, and they've extended their city limits all the way up 45 Highway. A lot of people don't know this, but all the way up to past where 435 and 45 meet. There's a big sports complex there and a Burger King. That's all in the city limits at Parkville now. So they're working their way this way.
And it's interesting, too. The funding, the way this funding is set up is totally different from things we've done in the past. You know, when you've got private funding coming in, that will offset. I am not against the bridge in Leavenworth whatsoever, so please don't anybody take that wrong. I am not. I just don't. I think we just need to have another alternative to what just having one shut down and having to make that trouble. And I honestly think it'll just grow. I was talking about the economic part of the county, and I think that's just a win-win for everybody. Keep your sales tax dollars in this community, or in this county, and take care of the quality of issue lives for people in the county. And I think that's just the direction we should go. Now, we don't have all the answers, and we're definitely going to be heading in that direction to hear what they've got. And maybe something may come up that say, well, the time's not right. But I think I really like the excitement of at least talking about to see where we're at.
I think we are spending a significant, as we move ahead, we're getting a significant amount of public investment now. So I think at some point you cross the Rubicon as far as the leadership of the county. We definitely want this bridge, and that's our leadership. But if we're going down this road, I think we all need to be committed to it.
Well, I think it's early, and I think we're definitely going in the right directions. Good points made, and we'll just have to see where this takes us.
Yeah, like I said, it's good for Basher. It's good for, like I said, Leavenworth County, all Leavenworth County. If you use the airport or Zona Rosa.
Yeah. I think when the
drone video,
you see that.
That's what's going to really put it in perspective.
Years ago, I drove it. You know, as a young guy, we're trying to work with everybody to get it done. And Missouri at that time just didn't want to do it for whatever reason. It was even interesting then, but to be able to see it from a drone, I think will open it up.
Because that's what's going to let people wrap their head around the fact that you could be at Quick Trip in Lansing and be at the airport in 7 or 8 minutes instead of 25 or 30. And this drone video is going to exactly show that. So I think that'll help a lot.
And I think what you said about the current bridge, we are very supportive of seeing funding for that bridge.
I'll make
that for years.
I'll make one additional statement to the collaboration that a project like this would take. We have, and Commissioner Culbertson was a part of at least one of those meetings, but we had 4 different meetings now with KDOT in regards where this project was discussed, 3 of which the Secretary of Transportation and the Deputy Secretary of Transportation were on those calls, and they have not verbalized any opposition to this project. They seem to be open to this discussion, and so I think that's also an important aspect of this is our transparency with providing them information and moving this project along. So obviously they haven't came out and made any statements of support, but that's also due to the fact that we don't know what the private sector investment is. So we're very early in this process, but I think we are very far along with that collaborative effort. We've had a lot of meetings, and we've tried to provide that information to everyone. And from the meetings that I've had, no one has really came out in direct opposition of continuing a study from an interlocal agreement aspect.
So if this is a public-private partnership, are we still eligible for any federal highway money and KDOT funding? Or
yes. What's that?
We still need to continue to work with the relationship and bring on MoDOT into
Right.
the whole.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot to mention MoDOT. Thank you.
It needs to be.
Yeah, that's definitely MoDOT's the other partner.
Yeah. So yes, we would still be eligible for. Now we may need to revisit some of our current county policies to ensure they align with federal regulation, but we would we would take this application both to the FHWA, KDOT, and MoDOT. But until we see what the private sector investment is, because we have such a large project and it could range, due to their willingness to invest over a given time frame, that amount may vary greatly. And so until we have that feasibility report back, we don't have a lot of good information to ask them for a collaborative financial effort.
Any other comments? I guess we need a motion.
You ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we approve the extension of the Transit Systems contract for the Eastern Gateway Bridge concept study of $61,540.
Second?
A motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Only thing I would just reiterate, and I think at some point we need to have maybe a work session with the city of Leavenworth. I think we need to just at least be able to present our case to these folks that we really would like to have them on board.
I agree. Nobody left out of this. Nobody. I agree. All righty. Is that okay? Then I'll start with Mr. Cos.
Aye.
Aye.
Jacobson. Mr. Helmsmith.
Aye.
Aye. Smith and Smith.
Yep.
All right, next is consider a motion to approve the annual county agreement with the Kansas Department of Transportation to treat noxious weeds on state highway right-of-ways in the county.
Yes, so this agreement is with the Kansas Department of Transportation, and so therefore the county agrees to submit an itemized bill to the state for reimbursement for wholesale cost of chemicals, dyes, plus the actual cost of treatment of noxious weeds at a set price of $27 per hour per operator, and a set price for the equipment rental of $45 per hour to treat the noxious weeds within KDOT right-of-ways. This is a continuation of an ongoing KDOT contract that I believe has been in place for quite some time, many, many years. This year, we did not see any substantial price increases, and so therefore, this is the exact same agreement that we entered into with KDOT the previous year. And so at that, I will try to answer any questions you may have, but it is just a continuation of our noxious weed program with KDOT.
What if the county said we weren't going to spray the noxious weeds in the state right away?
Well, I've been asked that question before because I've previously, for the 10 years, was in charge of a noxious weed department that had that same exact question. And basically the answer that I got is our right-of-way would look closer to that, to our neighbors on the Missouri side who don't enter into some of these agreements. I don't think they would probably spray any of those. They would try to mow them. They're not going to do it privately, I don't believe. I don't know of any counties or any jurisdictional areas that are privately contracting the spraying of their right-of-way with KDOT. And so with their current funding and status or employee levels, I don't think that they would be treating a lot of those.
Yeah, I know. We fought it before, and we finally got rid of the railroad, spraying the railroad right away. You know, the railroad. That was kind of difficult for us to do, spray railroad right away.
It's extremely difficult when you're driving on the lava rock. It tears up your tires, and you have to have special.
Or you're driving on the tracks.
You can't
The
drive
train
on-
comes.
Yeah, driving on the tracks. You got to get a tractor through there usually to carry enough chemical. You can't get a
And the
truck
railroad
there.
has big sprayers.
Well,
They can
but
spray the right
the
away.
county used to have to spray them in Leavenworth County, railroad right away.
Let's go. Yep.
And so, this, like I said, this is a standard deal. As long as they're covering their cost,
Right.
you know, it's not a moneymaker or anything.
I guess a question I have follow up on that, and are all of our neighboring counties involved in this, or is this a county by, like, is it kind of a patchwork of some counties participate and some don't?
I can't speak to the unified government of Wyandotte County, what they do, but Douglas, Jefferson, and Atchison all have the same agreement in place.
Okay.
And KDOT always mows our right of way, so that's a mechanical control after it spreads the seeds everywhere.
That's true. Any more comments on this one? Not, can I get a motion?
I'll move to, go ahead,
No,
Commissioner.
go ahead.
I move to approve the annual county agreement with Kansas Department of Transportation to treat noxious weed on state highway right-of-ways in Leavenworth County.
Second?
Motion and second. Any more discussion? Start with Commissioner Stevens.
Aye.
Aye.
Smith. Aye.
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 Thank you. That passes. Consider a motion to approve 2021 Leavenworth County Noxious Weed Program.
So this is the yearly renewal. This is that's required by the Kansas Department of Agriculture for the Leavenworth County Noxious Weed Program. This report and the plan that's being submitted to Kansas Department of Agriculture is based upon the chemical sales that were completed in Leavenworth County this last year. As you know, some of these sales have varied slightly from the previous years, but they weren't down considerably considering the COVID situation and the fact that we were delivering some of these chemicals to the courthouse instead of having the public come into the facility outside of town. And so the breakdown of the types of weeds, noxious weeds found in Leavenworth County is based upon the type of chemical sold and not based upon necessarily any visual site inspections or letters that our department has sent out. And so the bindweed, Johnson grass, leafy spurge, Canadian thistle, and Cerisa lespedesia that are within the report are just based upon the number of acres that could have been treated with the amount of chemicals that we sold in 2020. It also lists the type of equipment that is owned by the county and the program that we utilize to treat the different types of noxious weeds listed by the state on their inventory. If the commissioners have any questions, I'll try to answer them, but pretty...
Mr. Knoll, the sale of chemicals, is it going to be handled this year like it was last year? You have to order the day before, or is it going to be able to come in and pick them up as you need them?
I would prefer to be able to, with the new gate facility that we have, let the public come in and out of the current facility. It was an inconvenience, but we wanted to provide that service to the county residents. And so if it's permissible and allowed, and with the restrictions somewhat lifting with the people getting shots through this summer, I would anticipate that we'll be back to regular operating schedule.
So they won't be delivering up here in the courthouse parking lot.
We would prefer not to, unless the situation arises. That was a very inconvenient.
It was very inconvenient, and then then some people may not show up to pick their chemicals up, and people were waiting around. So
we're kind of in a centralized location where the shop's at, and so that worked out better too. And coming from Tonganoxie or sometimes even south in Linwood area all the way to the courthouse. So if we're allowed to, under COVID restrictions, we will sell them from the location.
Okay.
A separate question on this to get Mr. Knoll here. I heard on NPR this morning, or it might have been last night, Senator Manchin was talking about they might have another infrastructure program coming from the feds where the money would be fed to the states, and I guess that would involve infrastructure projects that we have fairly close to being ready to go. Do we have a few of those that could be plugged in if such a thing happened?
Yeah, we have several bridges. We have County Route 30.
And this is exactly what I always talk about, is if we can just get plans on the shelf and ready to go.
Right. And I think this could come into play, actually, because they're in the mood to spend a lot of federal money.
Got to print it first.
They can do it. They can do it. We got the experts in there now.
Press it the wrong way.
Would it not be true? That would be funny.
Yeah.
So anyway, just that might.
If there's any infrastructure project or packages that come out as a stimulus, we will definitely keep our eye on what criteria that you need to meet in order to qualify for those. And if we we have anything that qualifies, we will put in an application for it.
Any other comments? Not, could I get a motion for the 2021 Logan County Noxious Weed Program?
Motion to approve and sign the annual noxious weed eradication progress report 2021 for submittal to the Kansas Department of Agriculture.
Second.
Second, any more? All righty, very good. We'll call County Commissioner Cos.
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Smith, aye.
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 And it passes. Very good. Next item, consider a motion to approve and sign 2021 Annual Noxious Weed Eradication Progress Report.
Oh, I think I did the wrong one there, didn't I? I did, but I
Yep.
already did that motion.
Yeah, I was looking, I saw you say 2/21/21.
So finally, in conjunction with our noxious weed plan that was just
Plan.
approved, we have a annual noxious weed eradication progress report that's required by Kansas statute to be submitted on a yearly basis. It highlights the department personnel, the financial summary, the herbicide disbursement summary, enforcement summary, and the itemized weed treatment summary. Per Kansas statute, depending on your mill levies, you are required to subsidize portions of the cost of the sale of noxious weed control chemicals. And this report ensures that we're in compliance with state statute. And so I reviewed the report provided to us by Alan Phillips, the noxious weed supervisor, and see no issue with the report as prepared, and believe that we would be in full compliance with the submittal of this report.
Any comments, questions? Well, I'll take a motion on this one. Commissioner Cos, we'll go back to the other.
Yeah, I think somehow we need to fix what I
We
did.
will, we'll go back to it in a second.
Okay, yeah. Let's see. I moved it around. Which one am I looking at?
The motion to approve and sign 2021 Annual Noxious Weed Eradication Progress Report.
Yep, so moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? Mr. Stevens?
Aye.
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 Okay, that one passes. Now, let's back up one step.
There we go.
And, Counselor, do we need to rescind that and then vote on it, or how would you suggest we do it? I said, consider a motion to approve 2021 Logan County Noxious Weed Program. We went ahead, we got ahead of ourselves. Mickey wants to get out of here.
Commissioners, I suggest just reword the original motion. It will rescind the prior motion.
Okay.
Okay. I move that we approve the 2021 Leavenworth County Noxious Weed Program.
Second.
Motion and a second. I think we've had enough discussion on that. Commissioner Cos?
Aye.
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 All right. Presentations and discussions.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, before we move to that, while Mr. Knoll was here, I was wanting to bring up
Absolutely.
a driveway complaint on the new project, 178th Street. The driveway, the concern is the property owner believes the driveway is too steep, and it is steeper than most would like, but I was just wondering if they, or why they didn't move the driveway, or if they could move the driveway to a different location, like north of that,
So
on the plan.
the answer to that is yes, they could move the driveway. The resident did have concerns with the grade of the driveway. The driveway was originally designed at a 15.6% grade. In working with the contractor and the folks at Lineweaver Construction, they did grade the driveway back an additional 10 feet further than the plans indicated or required in order to try to reduce the grade of that driveway. If you look at the plan set that I provided, it is track 20, and as you can see, it is owned by Kathleen Navarro. So the driveway is located right next to the property line, and so after the fact, she did not bring this concern forward during the process of construction and asked for the driveway to be relocated during the construction. So she asked us to try to work with her in reducing the grade, which it was reduced to approximately 13.8% grade, so about 2% reduction, or just less than that. And so currently the driveway cannot be cut back any further because of the hill. You can see that the road, the dashed line on the plan set is the grade prior to construction. So that location was lowered about 2 feet. And then the tie-in back at the right-of-way is at natural grade. So we have a hill to the south. And so they could relocate their driveway to the north along their property line all the way up to the north property line. But with the construction being completed, the location of the water line underneath the driveway, so the driveway can't be lowered any further, and grading would extend off of the property owner's property onto the neighboring property. In order to do that, the existing driveway cannot be lowered.
But it doesn't meet spacing requirements anyways.
No, it doesn't. And in order to, and I didn't feel that at the time of, after the construction was completed and the contract is closed, the property owner had the opportunity to review the plans prior to construction, communication with her through the construction process. I don't have the authority within my position to make that, relocate that driveway with county expenses without board approval. I believe that she did then reach out to Commissioner Smith to make some requests, and so therefore here we are today. If it was my position that if she wanted to relocate her driveway at her expense, it would be within county policy to allow for that. It would be the commissioner's decision of whether or not the county would incur any of those costs.
Would, if the driveway was relocated, would the one be allowed to stay, or would that one have to be removed?
I mean, it's grandfathered in. It would be part of an agreement we made with the property owner. If we were going to incur any of the expense of the relocation of the driveway. I will note that the house sits near the center of the property, and so the driveway would then come around in front of their house.
Okay.
So,
All right. I don't know if the property owner is willing to relocate the driveway, or they were just wanting this one fixed. But the water line, you said, is you can't cut it back anymore.
can't cut it any lower. You'd cut in order when you reduce that grade, and you
then they're going to
be getting onto the neighbor's
snow
property.
drifts. Oh, that's right. They're on the property line.
They're on the property line, so you would be extending the grading beyond the property line, and you'd hit the water line until it's relocated later this year. And that water line is supposed to be relocated by October of this year.
Oh, they are going to remove that water line?
They stated that they would, because we didn't require it as part of the project. But because it's under their road, if they had breaks, we're not going to have them dig up a brand new road.
But they're not going to replace where this water line is in the driveway, are they?
Yeah, they're going to at some point in the future lower it, because this location is where they hit it twice when they were trying to tie those two driveways in, so it's not very deep.
Oh, so the water line hasn't been lowered prior to the project. So the water line's not very deep now.
The water line was verified to be in a certain location as part of the design plans. When the construction took place, the water line was nowhere near where the water district had indicated that it was. And so they had several conflicts, and this is one of the locations where those conflicts occurred, where they had to cut a section. And so, yeah, the water line's not.
So if they do lower or move the water line or lower the water line, they could actually move their driveway just a little bit and cut it down some more.
They can cut it down maybe 6 inches or a foot without grading. I mean, it depends on how steep they want that slope towards their neighbors, or they could move it a little bit to the north. But there would be more options once that water line is lowered.
I'm not sure if they would want the driveway moved, or if they would just want this one fixed. But to me, the easiest would be moving the driveway down the hill. It's not as steep.
Yeah, and the neighbors to the south built that retaining wall, and so grading to the south, you would grade beyond the property line to have a mowable slope. If you were going to be able to mow the slope on the south side of the driveway, you would have to grade onto the neighbor's property.
Okay.
The neighboring property owner had great concern over the type of seeding we were using. They wanted it seeded in native grasses and native vegetation, and so they removed the seeding after. Their plan is to remove the fescue type seeding that we have currently put in and reseed that embankment in native grasses after this spring.
Okay. Well, I can call these folks back and see if they're willing to move their driveway to solve the problem, because it doesn't sound like we're going to be able to cut this one back anymore.
And from my discussions with her regarding this, I think that they may have been open to the conversation of moving the driveway, but they wanted the county to incur those costs.
Hey, Bill, this is Mark. I have a quick question. Do we have an indication of what the slope was before our project?
Yes, it would be in the plans. It was about half, I believe, of the final grade. It was about an 8% slope, and this moved it up to about a 14% slope. So it was steeper. KDOT generally allows on their specifications anything under 15%, and so the design engineer was within KDOT standards when he designed it, but it is steeper considerably from their previous driveway.
So I know that the people didn't say anything before the construction or during construction, but I think as a layperson, it's hard to look at a set of plans and understand the difference between an 8% slope and a 14% slope. So I do, in this case, believe that the county should try to work somewhat with these people to amend the issue with their driveway.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeable with that. It's just whatever direction you and the board provide, it would definitely cost more than the $2,000 that we would be able to allocate post-process administratively.
Don't we have a cost on that?
On the relocation of the driveway?
You'd have to put a culvert in.
I mean, I'm just
Grade.
prepared. I know it's a lot of work. We've got to do it. So we got to work that quite a few times.
It would depend greatly upon whether we did it with county staff and equipment or whether it was contracted.
Okay. What's the board's pleasure?
Providing a culvert's not a big deal.
Oh, we can provide a culvert.
Providing a culvert's not a big deal, but then you'd have to have the hold harmless right of entry on someone's property.
I know in some of
I'm
these
not-
situations we have, I've been a part of, we have provided a culvert and the dirt required to fill the ditch in at the culvert and gravelled the driveway to the right-of-way, and then the improvements on the private property were the responsibility of the landowners to kind of split the difference or split some of the cost up. But this driveway is, the relocation of this driveway would be approximately 250 feet.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a pretty long relocation of the driveway.
Yeah, I can do that. And like I said, maybe Mr. Knoll could give us an estimate next week or something. How much it would cost to figure in pipe, because I'm sure it's a 18-inch pipe probably.
Yeah, it'd be an
18-inch culvert, 24 foot.
Okay with that?
And then get a cost, and I'll see if they're open to that. Right, because they may be totally against it, but I'll do it. And then, like I said, if you can get us a cost, and then we'll see where we can go.
County Commission's okay with that? Go in that direction? Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Bill.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Well, any presentation? I don't.
there any presentations?
I just have one question. I didn't cover this at the very beginning, but I want to make sure that we get it on our agenda. I know I had asked for the health officer to be here, getting lots of calls about our rollout of the vaccinations, and I was told that probably didn't have good information right now, but between now and next Wednesday, maybe we can get some good information from county health officer and the state and find out where we're at with this rollout, and who's making the decisions, and how much is being allocated to the various counties, and when different counties are moving into phase 2 at different rates, we need to have some answers for our folks that are very concerned. We got a lot of people that want to get the vaccination as quickly as possible, or they have loved ones they want to get vaccinated as quickly as possible in phase 2. And this is a real concern, and I think we definitely need to hear from our health officer.
Well, I think that right now, what we would be receiving information right now from the health officer would be that we have no vaccines available to even finish phase 1 or move into phase 2 efficiently. So I would prefer that if we're going to hear from Jamie and for him to take time to come in as opposed to testing and getting people inoculated, that we have good information. And right now, what the information is that we don't have vaccines in Leavenworth County right now. And I think people need to understand that. They're not being withheld. They're not, the health department is doing the best that they can with what the resources that they have. And that when we receive those vaccines, we will begin to move into the various phases and,
And I guess one concern is that we have some counties that they are saying that they are, although they don't necessarily have the vaccine now for phase 2, they are taking a list and getting people that potentially would be eligible for phase 2, and they're making a list, and concern is that maybe we're not making a list to that effect. And I guess there's just a lot of questions that I think should be addressed, and also another part of this is maybe we should have some of our state legislators or state senators on the line and say, how can you help us get these additional vaccines, or at least give us answers to questions? I think there's a lot of people that we're not getting a lot of answers from the state to the county, and then that's making a lot of folks very concerned.
Mike, I think if we could, just a suggestion, folks, that we have our county administrator maybe contact with the state and talk. One of the things I see is that I'm not so sure it's not that we're not getting the information. I'm not clear yet, so bear with me, folks, on how the county sends out that information. I'm not so sure we shouldn't, and I could be missing it, so if I am, I apologize. How are we sending this out on a basis that it's getting to people besides a blog once in a while saying these are the top 4? I think people just want to know. I've had concerns too. I've had people interacting with me, just want to know where we're at. I think that we had something that said this is where we're locked in as the day, and we put it out every so often. People would have a better understanding. Nobody's happy that they think we're not getting the vaccine. There's no doubt about that. I hear that on a regular basis. But I don't know if we should just send Jamie questions or have him report back. I'm not sure how we want to handle this, because I understand what Commissioner Cause is saying, but I've got a concern about the information not getting out, because when I get contact, I say, have you looked at this? I don't know what and I apologize, I probably should know. I don't know how it flows down to get it out to the citizens in the county yet on this, and that's something I've got to learn, so I could be totally wrong on that.
Well, we periodically had a report from the county health officer, and we haven't had one for a bit, and we're certainly...
Commissioners, this is Mark again. Jamie was actually in just a few weeks ago and gave an update. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, but every week, actually a couple times a week, we put out updated numbers. The county health officer puts out updated numbers on the number of COVID cases, and for the last 2 weeks, he's also included the vaccine information. So a couple times a week, that information is put out there. It's also on the website. It talks about how many vaccines we've received at Leavenworth County and how many are given. And I think right now we're sitting at like 720 or something like that vaccines received, and they have given, I think, probably 80 to 90% of those, and probably by today they'll be 100% of those will be given. Some of the vaccine they have to hold for the second, because it's a two-phase vaccine. Some of them they have to hold for that second one, so they make sure that they have them on hand for those people so they don't miss that second vaccine. But they're allocated, this first phase is allocated to the health professionals.
So is the 720 mark, is that number 720, is that the number of individuals that have received it, or is that like there's 2 doses, and so that could be like you got to divide that in half?
720 is the total number of vaccines that we've received. So as they move forward, the state controls the distribution of the vaccines. The information they do have on their website, some information the state of Kansas does, but they don't. There's not enough data there to get every answer that you want from the state, Commissioner Stephen. It's not available on their website. So the only way that Jamie and he and I have talked about this, the only way he could get that information is by calling the health officer in each of the counties and trying to get them to disseminate that information to him, which I think takes away really from his primary function right now. I know everybody wants the data and they'd like to be able to compare how we stand with the other counties, but I don't know what you do with that data after you get it, one, and two, I really don't want to take Jamie away from giving vaccines and doing testing and his staff.
Well, Jamie
to
doesn't
get data that
necessarily
we
have
can't change.
Mark, Jamie doesn't necessarily have to do that research. We have other people on our county staff, and I think if we're getting less vaccine,
any employee.
Yeah, one at a time. We're talking over each other.
Okay.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
If we're getting less vaccine than per capita than Wyandotte or Johnson or Douglas, then I want to know, that's where the state legislators would come in and find out exactly what the policy is for dissemination of the vaccine and what criteria the state is using to determine how the numbers are being distributed. And I just think we need to get this data, and I think I'm getting a lot of calls concerned that if you take 720, divide that in half, because that's 2 injections, that is a little less than 400 for a county of 82,000.
360.
May I interrupt? I think that we also have to consider that within phase 1, and there will be changes in the different way of moving the vaccines based on population, yes, but right now, based on the number of healthcare providers that we have in Leavenworth County, the number of individuals who are employed by anything in the healthcare industry, we don't have quite as many. We have only one hospital. We used to have 2, but we only have 1. We have, we don't have as many businesses that have health care services provided. And so it's going to stand to reason that a Johnson County or a Wyandotte County or a Sedgwick County who have multiple hospitals and facilities, I'm just saying, giving an example, that's kind of like trying to compare apples to oranges when it comes to the phase 1 distribution of the vaccine, because those vaccines have been set aside for those purposes. The people, the businesses that provided those types of services, the county reached out to all of those businesses and asked them, how many vaccines do you need to vaccinate your employees? And they gave them those numbers. Some individuals have elected not to receive the vaccine are in the healthcare industry. However, those that have asked for it, Jamie provided that number to the state of Kansas.
Could I just make a suggestion?
And then they sent the vaccines here.
Could I just make a suggestion? And this is totally what y'all want to do. I see both sides that's going on. I think the information is what we're trying to get to. Is there any consideration, since Jamie, we won't take him away, but we do have a county administrator, if we couldn't feed questions to him a couple of times and then him just report back to us, if there's no update, there's no update. At least we could keep it in front of people as we go along, so it's not like they don't understand. Now, I'm just throwing that out there for whatever.
Well, I agree with everything you said. I agree with that. My wife works in the healthcare industry, and we visited and talked about that. I agree with that. So I'm on the same page with you on that. But the reason I think we need to have the health officer here is to ask those questions, and then the second part of it is we have a phase 2 rollout that's coming, and I think there's a lot of questions that folks have about how that phase 2 is going to happen in Leavenworth County and what the plan is. And I just think there's questions that we need to address, and I believe we need to have our health officer here to address them, and I frankly think it would be irresponsible if we don't.
I'm just saying that I think maybe if we're going to do anything similar to what the board wants to do, we got to get those questions out to the people, so out to the elected, out to the staff, so there's no surprises. So if there's a certain question, Commissioner, that you want it done, or any commissioner want it done, we could send that out to them, and they could report back. But to bring them in and just say, okay, where's this, is not the way we want to do that. No surprises on either side.
Right.
But I totally agree about the information thing, Mike. I really do. So maybe, and let's brainstorm it. Maybe if you throw some questions out, and then Mark report back, and if Mark thinks, or the commission thinks we need to bring Jamie in here, that's fine. We're getting ready, as Commissioner Cost said, we're getting ready to probably change to another step before it's too long. But get those questions out so we can do it, so it's not like we're not wanting to talk about it at all.
Well, but I do think it's the job of the county commissioners to know what's happening over there, and we can't disseminate this information unless we ask the question.
And that's what I'm saying.
And you could do it in writing, but I also think it's.
No, you can ask the question to them. I'm just saying, let's give them time to look up the answer.
Oh, absolutely, I agree with that.
And then-
But I think time is of the essence, and people want to know.
Okay, what's the?
Are you done?
Yeah.
Mr. Stevens? Like I said, I attended Bayshore City Council last Wednesday. Tomorrow's JCAB, I believe, Commissioner Cause.
Yes.
2 o'clock, JCAB by Zoom. Mid-American Regional Council's next Tuesday. That's pretty much all I got.
I'm just trying to catch up with y'all.
Okay.
I can't just say anything like that.
Oh, was anybody attending the annual LCDC Zoom
It's by
meeting?
Zoom.
Tomorrow.
Friday.
Friday.
Are you?
I probably will.
Okay.
Yep.
Are you?
It's at noon, right?
I don't think I will be able to. on
Noon Friday.
I got something else going on Friday.
If I'm around, I can, but I'm not sure. The crystal ball is foggy.
Like I said, I know I got something else on Friday. But anyways, but
you
Commissioner
available?
Paulson will be there.
I can do the LCDC if nobody else is
Okay.
going to. I just stepped back.
So we'll have 2 there.
And Commissioner
Okay.
Culberson kind of wanted to increase his involvement.
Okay.
And traditionally, it was usually Commissioner Shemke also, so.
Well, I think too, and I appreciate you and Commissioner too. I get my feet a little wet. LCDC is something I want to talk about in the future too. I know I'm throwing 1,000 things out there, so it's good to have board members out there to be able to report back to what's going on. I think we just have a great opportunity to look at things maybe outside the box. I know that's things people use, but with the county commissioners involved and going to all these meetings, we definitely have a front row seat to see if we need to talk about this at all.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vicki. Jeff, did you have anything?
I met with City of Easton about some things. That's one of the executive sessions that we're going into later. Has to do with Easton City. We also flew the drone video for the 152 bridge Wednesday afternoon. They'll probably have that done next week. So we'll get that finished up so we can set the meeting with Lansing City.
I think there was a fire board meeting last night too to point out another one. I didn't make it. They took my parking space at Lansing Mayor. I don't attend too many of those things, but I'll start going back.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I think that's one of the things that they had. Jeff, I'm sorry, did you have anything?
Nope, that's it.
Well, I did the Adult Corrections Advisory Board yesterday meeting, and was invited and represented the county with the Martin Luther King celebration activities that was done by the NAACP, which was a really neat experience of watching young people especially involved themselves in the history of the cemetery and, you know, some of the contributions that were made by local.
It's out on Facebook. That's good.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And listened in on the Leavenworth City Commission meeting via their thing last evening, which pretty soon we'll all be able to kind of make it into the public arena, I hope. Just as an FYI, I think that the city of Leavenworth is favorably considering the St. Patrick's Day Parade. I think that Mr. Scanlon came before the City Commission last night and requested that they be allowed to move forward with it. They're going to give 2 weeks of looking at data and making sure that everything is kind of going to move, but it sounds like that it's going to be a go. So I think that's kind of cool.
I know what's restaurant, but I miss those kind of stuff. From the cities, the county. I was really glad. That's good news. Thank you.
So that's probably pretty much the.
Don't think we had any problem with Veterans Day parade, so I don't know why we wouldn't have.
No,
St.
things worked out. I
Patrick's
think that you know, Jamie worked with the Veterans Day Parade Committee to, you know, have some of the assurances and the things that they asked for them to take care of, and I think that by and large, that worked out fairly well. There was a little bit of peaking following the that, but by March, hopefully, we're going to have had at least half of our community members with their vaccinations. So, you know, that's going to reduce some of the risk that we have. And so I think that that's a cool thing.
Yeah,
I just, and then next week I have the workforce partnership, 2 meetings, the board and the CEO.
So, couple things. I met with Mr. Reichman about retaining ponds, and I'm not going to ask David this week, but I do have a few questions to publicly ask him down the road on retention ponds and what the law is on that. And second, I'm speaking at the Elephant Club for, Thursday night in Tonganoxie, so I have the opportunity to talk about county business, what's going on, some of the things that are going on in the county. And we've been doing a project. Yesterday, the ladies at the church in Tonganoxie Cornerstone provided 15. This actually is an idea that came from a conductor on the railroad, and him and his family go out and provide new backpacks, blankets, hat and gloves, and to the homeless. And he does that in Kansas City. And I said, I bet that we could probably use the platform of county commissioner to probably be able to really extend that. And the ladies they have a ladies Bible study, and they all chipped in, and I put a picture on Facebook of them, and I just think this is a way, you know, there's been so much negativity. Let's do some positive stuff, and anybody that wants to participate, not taking money, just taking backpacks, whatever you have, and we're going to go distribute those to the folks that, you know, have a ratty old blanket, and maybe you can have something nice for a little while.
That's awesome. Thank you, Mike.
I think that's just great. Anything else, folks, before we...
Oh, I think Kansas for Life's got the candlelight vigil Friday night, courthouse.
5 o'clock, 5:30.
5:30, I believe. And is that it? You ready for a motion?
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Chair, I move that this board recess from open session and go into a closed executive session for a preliminary discussion on acquisition of real property as justified by KSA 75-4319B6, and that this board resume open session in this meeting room at 10:35. Present in the executive session will be Commissioners Jeff Culverson, Vicki Cause, Doug Smith, Mike Smith, and Mike Steben. Present also will be County Administrator Mark Lawfrey and Senior County Counselor David Van Perrys.
Second.
Motion and a second. Let's go. Mr. Cause?
Aye.
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 We're back in open session. No action was taken at that time. And I guess we need to move on to the next one.
You want to make this?
Can I just,
Yeah.
before we do that, I would prefer, because I know that there's going to be some things that are going to be discussed with the non-elected personnel issues, that probably I would prefer that we move it to this executive session to next meeting so that the county administrator can be present. Because my understanding is that he may need some information that he has on his computer that he really can't do well from still being on leave from COVID.
Ask Mark.
I drew on it.
That's right.
Yeah, actually, it's not timely.
Okay.
It's just it's a topic I need to discuss with y'all, and I would prefer to do it in person, which I am for sure will be back next week. In fact, I'm hoping tomorrow will be I'll be released. So I would prefer that executive session for non-elected personnel just not be held today. We'll have it next week.
Sounds like a plan. Everybody okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we down to additional public comments.
Yeah, we have none today.
So, question, Mr. Chairman, is the health officer going to be here next week, or how are we handling that?
Well, what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound as he's going to be. I thought they was to use the question for Mark and come back, but we can put him in county commissioner tomorrow.
Yep.
I don't know.
It's up to you guys.
I would prefer that he be here.
It doesn't matter. Like I said, I know he's awful busy out there with testing and what vaccines he does have available, and I don't know. Like I said, I don't know when they're getting more vaccine.
Maybe we can just say that if there's a
change,
substantial update that we'll see if we can't get Jamie in. Otherwise, I think that we could have Mark update us because he's more daily in conversation.
We at least need Mark update. That's
yeah, Mark.
Right, which I agree.
But if we decide later on that we need to have Jamie up here, then we get Jamie up here.
Right.
So what's I know how you feel about it, Mike.
Like I said, I think Jamie's got a lot to do right now.
Jeff?
Nope.
I have no preference. It's like I said, if there's something that's substantial, I think yes, we definitely need to ask Jamie to come, and maybe just to give us an update. But I think that Mark can give us just general updates every week.
Well, I tell you what, I will address a number of questions, and I want to know how Phase 2 is going to be implemented, and I think we need to get that information out to people out in the county. And that's what having the health officer here, he could delineate a lot better what the plan is for implementation of Phase 2 than going through an intermediary.
I like the idea about the state representatives coming in, Mike.
And I like the I would be willing to reach out to the state reps to see if they could help us to get more vaccine.
They were all at lunch yesterday.
But have them come in and
Well, don't you think
put them on the spot?
Have the county administrator pursue go that direction?
Yeah. Well, can we pursue that for next week sooner rather than later?
For Mark to have any questions answered?
Well, to get our representatives and senators on the line?
Maybe at least get a timeline. If they can't make it, when can they come up here on a Wednesday?
Or like we had Jeff Pittman on the phone at least.
Yeah, or whichever ones can be on the phone. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason that we need information from Jamie, and we could get it in writing, but we need to know what actually his plan is for the Phase 2. And then we do need somebody to collate comparison to other counties where we fit in this, how the distribution is being allotted.
I'm sure Mr. Miller probably doesn't have any idea because we don't know if doctors' offices are going to be getting them or if it's just the pharmacies that are going to be getting them.
I'd like to hear from him, though,
Well, and I think that he did provide us with that, and I think that he does update, and then whenever he has a graphic or an infographic, he always shares those on our website, on the counties. The county health departments, both their website and their Facebook page. The county puts that information out. And it's fairly real time when he gets that information. I don't think that until they know exactly where we are in the distribution of things, I know that the county is health department, they are working on making sure that the plan that we have for our county suits and works well for our county.
But I don't,
And
as a county
but they
commissioner,
haven't-
I don't know what the plan is.
But
And
I don't think.
I
the
can't tell
plan-
people.
I don't think other than saying, here are the phases, and here is who is, I don't know how, what
Did we come out of executive
qualifies for,
Yeah.
or whatever, you know.
I
But I
just
think that there's
would like to
working on
have
based
questions
on
answered about.
availability.
You know, I don't have any problem with the question with Mark answering, but I just want the question ahead of time. That's my key, because it gives them time to research it and come back. Now, they may be follow-up questions, right?
Right, and we've gone through this before. We've had the county health officer here before. I just feel
I've watched you guys on Zoom.
it's fairly important at this time.
Okay. Does anybody, for this time only, and Mark, speak up if you want to, does anybody at this time have a problem to have Jamie come up here with Mark with questions ahead of time and maybe a rep from the state to try to answer some of the questions we have? Or would y'all like to put that off? Please tell me what your wishes are.
Is Capitol closed right now? Are they in session?
They're in session.
They're in session by Zoom, or?
I know that I've talked to one of them and he's up there, but I don't know what.
Okay, but you probably can't go. They don't.
No, the
meet.
public can't.
Well, but are they meeting in chambers or are they meeting Zoom?
As far as I know, they're in the building.
I don't think they're
But I don't
holding-
think they're meeting in their chambers.
Right. I don't think they're holding until after, because they had COVID exposed,
Right.
my understanding is.
Okay, I haven't.
So
Right.
they're
That's something new. I don't know about that.
You didn't hear about that in Branson?
I believe that's what I heard either yesterday.
Yeah, I
or the
did.
day
That's what I
before.
heard too.
I thought that's what I heard.
So I didn't know if they were like in their offices and then doing Zoom, or if they're actually.
But we could
I
get.
think they're in their chambers right
We
now.
could get whichever of our reps and senators are available to call in. You know.
I don't have a problem with that.
No,
And-
that worked really well.
But I'm not so sure. Those are the people we need to be asking questions to anyway. I understand with Mark and Jamie, they're trying to stay on top of this and doing a good job, but the state people are giving us the information.
But if we had Jamie here and he addressed questions, and then the state legislators are on the line, we would see it would come to light what questions we don't
I think
have.
Jamie would be here more to ask questions to the state
Mhm.
than really
And-
address it.
and that's
What I don't
true.
wanna- What I don't want to do, what I don't want to see, is we go after a staff member because they don't have the correct answers, because there are not correct answers. That's why I like to have.
They're not available.
Yeah, exactly. I like to have the questions ahead of time and then come in. I think Jamie being here would be fine, but I think our questions are going to be directed to the state. Now, if Jamie comes in with that, and Mark and Jamie want to speak on that, that's fine, but the state people are the ones giving us direction.
Right, and I think it could be interactive, because you could find out. We would know exactly, here's the plan for phase 2, and then here's the information we don't have. Okay, Senator Pittman or Representative Proctor, what information can you gather for us?
Mike, don't get frustrated. And I'm just speaking out loud. Don't get frustrated if staff doesn't know it, because they just don't know yet. But so if you ask them a question they don't know, it's because they just don't know. The questions need to be directed. People get on Zoom, phone, or whatever, how we do it. We need to ask them the questions. And it'd be education, maybe for Mark and Jamie too.
Right, and I just think that's what we should have. And I'm not going to get necessarily frustrated with Jamie. I may get frustrated with our representatives that they don't have the answers, and because I think that what this reflects is how our constituents feel about the rollout of this vaccine, and we just need
But the
to be
rollout's been a
asking questions.
disaster from the top all the way to, I mean, so we can't really, I mean, I'm just saying that let's let Jamie and the health department staff do their job. Let them work out and look at, based on the information they have and what they know they're going to have available, and at what rate is it going to be coming. That's going to determine, do we just bring people in with a little scheduled thing, or do we do a mass inoculation because all of a sudden there's this big, huge, that's going to all change how we make this distribution and what our plan could be. So I think we need to be fluid, we need to be patient, and we need to understand that right now, so far, the individuals who are within the group 1 phase are receiving their vaccines. And if they're not, then there may be little, there's always the little hiccup then they should pick up the phone and call the health department and say, I'm in group 1, I work for this, or else I'm an independent health care provider or whatever, and get them in line to get because there will be people that have not received their vaccines within phase 1 that should have.
Right.
And so, all of those
And you're
things are gonna
100%
happen.
right, but our job is oversight of
But
the
not micromanage.
and
Oversight,
asking
yes.
questions
Micromanage, no.
guys,
Asking,
let me
nobody
ask
should
you-
not
is
ask
not
questions.
micromanaging.
I'm just saying you can pick up the phone and you can email. Jamie has an email.
Exactly, but him coming here and answering questions, and we can give him the questions we have ahead of time. But if we have our legislators on the phone and we have our health officer, then we can see after that conversation what the gaps are, and then the public is well aware.
I think we just, at the minimum, we need to probably have the state, if we can get the state reps here.
Right.
Then they talk to us. After that, I don't know. I mean, if Jamie could be here, Mark, it's your county minister, we could have him here. But the questions are going to be directed at our elected state officials because that's where Jamie and Mark and everybody else is trying to get the information from.
And let's do that. Let's get the state legislators and the senator on the phone. But I think Jamie could probably help us to understand at least the rollout of phase 2 because there are questions about that.
I think that he will once it has been established, is my point. I do not believe that has fully been developed at this point. And why confuse things by saying, well, it was this yesterday, but no, we're going to do it this now. Let's make sure we have a solid plan for phase 2 and then phase 3. And then, let's make sure we have a solid plan to share with the public.
I would hope by next Wednesday we'd have at least a skeleton plan developed.
And I think that's already what I'm saying is in the meeting, but it has not been.
But those are the questions. See, you're answering those questions,
Because
but
I'm
I don't know if that is the position of our health officer. I know that that's what you're telling me, but I think as commissioners, and I think I'm getting a lot of calls on this. I got 2 calls just yesterday wanting to know about family members that are in the 65 plus with pre-existing conditions and health issues when they're going to qualify, and they're getting a lot of misinformation. So all I'm saying is by having the health officer and our district representatives and our senator, at least we can get as much clarification
Well, let's do this.
as possible.
Let's take this one at a time. Who wants to have the state elected officials on phone or whatever for next Wednesday's meeting?
I do.
You can invite them.
You know, that's what I'm saying.
Everybody on my phone.
I do.
I'm fine with that.
Right.
Now, who wants to have Jamie here? I think Mark can answer the question, but who wants to have Jamie here also present at this meeting? Vicki.
If he has the time and has information that is.
I think we made it very
productive.
clear that Jamie's not going to be the focal one getting the questions. The state's going to be. And that's the way it should be. So is everybody having Jamie here? Mark, speak up when you get a chance. Have Jamie here in case the state says something maybe they can explain. Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, then let's ask Mark. We're going to direct you to bring Jamie up here. And is there anything, Mark, you'd like to say?
Yeah. So I get where everybody's at with this, and I understand the frustration. But I want you to look back to when the CARES Act funds were being distributed. The rules changed almost daily.
Yeah.
The first month and a half.
Yep,
And
for
that's
everybody.
what's happening right now with the vaccine distribution. The rules are changing almost daily. So Jamie's working on plans, and then the next day the plans change at the state,
Absolutely.
which makes him have to update that plan. So he is more than willing, and I'm happy to have him come in and present where we are right now, understanding that could change the next day. And that's
Right.
what we want to be careful about is
And
we put
Mark,
a plan out there, and then it changes, and people are looking at, hey, what you told us last week, we were going to be able to come in
Totally.
3 weeks.
totally agree, Mark. I think that's why it's important to get the state folks up here too, and Jamie just here in case there's some questions go away. But as far as the commissioners are giving direction, would you make sure that happens next Wednesday if possible?
We will, I will reach out to the representatives and see if they're available. Obviously, staff is available at any time the commission has a request.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Is there any others? Have we beat this up enough?
Okay, we ready for a motion to adjourn? Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. Mr. Collins?
Aye.
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 Thank